Hey everybody. I'm going to continue these little instructional videos. Hopefully my voice is a little louder this time. I found it a little quiet last time. So anyway, what I'm going to do is show you how to create a new kin in this video, and then we'll do some other videos afterwards. Now, the reason for this is because sometimes you want to create a character that has one of the non-standard kin or race or however you want to call it, but in Against the Darkmaster they're called kin. So I have a kin made up with their advantages, their kin traits, special traits, and their stat block, and so on, and I'm going to use that. So I'm just going to put it on the other screen so I can get that stuff out. So what I'm going to do is start with a Dusk Elf kin, but the first thing I'm going to do is create a folder for this, a temporary folder for this, and well, I'm just going to call it kin, and then I'm going to make it purple just so it's different than anything else. Open it up, go to the VsD items, pick one of the kin templates, and I think this one's closest to the Dusk Elf, so I'll take that. Whoops. And I need to actually drop it in there. Okay. Now, so I won't need that anymore. So when I open that up, this is a container, and it shows you all of the bits and pieces that it has inside it. So some of these may not be changing, but some of them might. So what we're just going to do is drag them all into that side folder. So that we can edit them. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. And then we're just going to delete them from here. And then we're going to rename this one Wild Elf. So that one's all ready to go. And we might as well just leave it off to the side, and we'll load it up later. So, first thing, kin Dusk Elf. Well, we're going to change that to Wild Elf. And we'll look at the special traits that it has, all of these other things. Yeah, I can't do that, so I'm simply going to, they speak Common Tongue and English, Elvish, but I don't have languages listed here. I'll do that elsewhere. So Hills, Plains, Weald, or Woad instead of Fey or Woad. Whoops, careful. Okay, their wealth is +0. Do they get 3 background points? They do. Magic points? They only get +1. Okay, so do they get lithe and graceful? Well, lithe and not so graceful, so that's... I'm just messing around with those. Sure shot. Yes, they get sure shot. Light-footed. Yep. Not immortal, because the elves in this are not immortal. So I changed it to that. And they do get keen senses. Okay. So that's changed those. Now for their attributes, their stats. They get 3 at plus 10, so what we'll do is we'll duplicate that twice, bring that up. We could do them all in one block. Sorry about the rolling. That's just a bug that it doesn't really do anything except roll when you do this kind of activity. Brawn, so we want brawn. BRN. Then we have FOR. The target of a modifier needs to be case sensitive, and if that modifier is of a primary attribute or a pool, actually, can you do pools? No. So primary attribute, then it has to be case sensitive of the abbreviation, not the name. Okay, and it has to equal the abbreviation. So let's see. Now wit is at -10, but we've got a couple more to go here. Bearing, -5. Wit is -10. And so if you haven't selected outside, then clicking the first click out locks in whatever it was you just edited. So it might not do it immediately. But if I hit tab, then that locks it in. Now the wisdom, however, is +5. Okay, so that's that's the 6 stats. Now, do they get toughness? Yep, +10. And they don't get they get a 0 for the willpower saving roll. Body, they get 30. Okay, so this applies to the body skill, and then I have this extra thing, the kin and vocation modifier, that applies a value to hit points, because body and hit points aren't exactly the same thing. All right, and I think size medium, speed 15 meters, that's okay, that's elsewhere. And I'm going to be changing this to, oops, character. Okay, now I've already done this once, so I'm just showing you how it's done because it's something that pretty much everybody's going to want to do at some point or another. So I created the character who is a wild elf, and you can see that this wild elf kin wild elf has been dropped here, and the reason you put character there is so that something that is not a trait can be listed with the traits, the trait that is named there. So in this case it's character, so it shows up in here. If I take this one just to demonstrate and change it to kin, then you see that it moves up into the kin special abilities section. And this one is background, and this is languages, and I think that's, oh yeah, there are a couple up here. There's passions and revelations. So those are the 5 places you can put things. In this case I'm putting it back in character, just so you can find them all. And the reason for them being down here is so that you can, you hover over them and you can see what their, how they're edited or what their notes are. It just shows the notes like that. But if you want to show everybody else, then you can hit that and it will send it to the chat. Like that. So that's what these little bubbles are saying. Send this to the chat. Send the notes to the chat. Alright, well I might as well close that. Okay, so what else I did with that kin was I added that little note at the front end. So I will do that now and close this. Go back to the items. Kin wild elf here. And take that line unlike. we go. Okay. This character, all of those are set. Done. Keen senses. Let's see, is that going to be changed in any way? So this is a modifier. Now, you note that we have this twice. There's a reason for that, and it's a weird one. Okay, so this one is a trait. So all they have is the, oh right, experience hooks is another type, but that shows up in a different tab. So, yeah, this is a kin special trait, so I'm leaving it with the word kin, but because it's selected kin, sorry, it's a trait that has kin special trait, it doesn't really matter. This is going to override it. Note that the text is exactly the same. I just have that in case you hover over the modifier, then you'll see the notes. So might as well have the same text in the two places. But this is the one that actually applies the change. So the change is you have a special +10 bonus to your perception skill. Full stop, all the time, so we make the modifier always on. Additionally, they can see in natural moonlight or blah blah blah. Okay. That is very hard to make happen in the game system based on text. But I've created a macro that looks at the actor and looks for the name of the trait. And if the name is dark sight or night vision or something along those lines, then the macro will apply when you say it is dim light, then it'll look at the token and figure out, oh, this one's got keen senses, so I need to see 30 meters. So that's why I have two items here, when normally I would just use this one and put it in the kin section, because that macro is looking for a trait, not something that's pretending to be a trait. So that's why I have to keep the trait. But otherwise, it's unchanged. So we'll leave that one alone. Immortal. We know that that one's going to be different. Whoops. Don't do that. Change the name of it to not immortal, but ... So, what this is conditional, and it'll turn off every time you roll. So if you select it's always on, reset after every round, or reset after every roll. So this is in response to you're being attacked by normal cold. What does it say? Kin do not age, immune to disease, resistant to the effects of natural cold, gaining +10 bonus against any cold-based threat. And then there's this other information, you don't need to sleep and so on. Okay. Well, yeah, they don't need to sleep, benefit meditating for 3 hours. Gotcha. So, because it's conditional, we need to have a modifier for it that is not always on, and that you can toggle on or off whenever it happens. But once you've used it, then it'll toggle off automatically on its own, so you don't accidentally leave it on for the next roll, whatever that might be. Okay. So, I've changed the name of it. Otherwise, its effects are identical to the original, except that's what it is. Your kin do not age. That's not true. They are not immortal. Your kin are immune to disease, resistant to the effects of natural cold. There. That's the change needed for that one. And note that this is a non-trait that's going to be listed with a kin. Special effects. Okay, so what's the next one? Light-footed. We'll have a look. Light-footed. Rough terrain doesn't affect the movement of elves as long as they're unencumbered, wearing light or no armor. Counts as a half-group number, rounding up. Okay, so there's no game effect that we can make happen there. It's all got to be done narratively. Light-footed works, and it's a kin special trait. We'll leave that alone. Okay. Sure shot. Plus 10 to ranged. Okay, here's another one of these weirdnesses. Because attacks are based on skills, but you don't, you when you modify the skill, you don't modify the attack. So I have to do them both. So anytime you're modifying a combat skill, also modify the combat attack. The reason that they're named the same is because I have prefixed all of the attacks for every single weapon with the skill that manages them. So that way you can apply the bonuses in exactly the same way to the skill and to the attacks. Okay, so plus 10 to range skill, this is always on, leave that one alone. Okay, after sure shot, lithe and not so graceful. So I've changed the name for some reason. Let's find out what it is. Wild elves get a plus 10 bonus to their acrobatics skill and plus 20 bonus to their stealth rolls when they're in a natural environment. So one of those is always on and the other one is conditional. But the part that doesn't happen is this. Must assign one of their 3 highest stat values to their bearing. You don't need that. Oops. Your kin get a plus 10 bonus on their acrobatics skill and a plus 20 bonus. Yep, that's worded correctly now. Lithe and not so graceful, this one is always on and it's going to be listed in the kin if you need to see why. And then in nature, this one doesn't need to be in the kin section. So I'm going to change it. Now, this is a condition. We'll reset it after every roll because you may or may not be in nature. And I do need to change that wording again. There we go. Okay, so that way it'll only be listed once in the stat block section at the front, the trait section. But this one will still, because it's a modifier, will still show up in the skills section. Okay, lithe and not so graceful in nature. You know, that's not really necessary. The condition is you're in nature. So we'll just call it that. So that you know when to turn it on. In nature. Natural surroundings. No, we'll leave it the way it said it. In nature. No, natural environment. So it looks like I'm going to be using this version, not the other one. I'll just be deleting the other character because I didn't make these changes to this thing. Okay. In natural environment. Okay. Then what do we have? I think we've done it. That's everything. So let's take kin wild elf and we'll drop these things in it. Okay, so now we've built the kin. And then I'm going to delete the one that I built before. And put this one in instead. And we'll apply it. So The neat thing about containers, and it's, I guess I'm going to show it on this tab here. We're going to drag it on, and what it does, a container deploys all of the things that are in it onto the sheet when it gets dropped. So we see kin wild elf is right there, and the kin changed from name of kin. This is an NPC template, so it had, you could just have typed the name in, actually you would have to do it here. Change the name of the kin here. Okay. Now, we've already done these things here, but we're going to want to create her base attributes. But we've already done these things for the kin, so what we're going to do is delete those and leave this alone. And then we're going to change this to base stats. So that we're ready to do that. And that will be under character. Yes, that's where we want it to be. It'll be always on, but we can get it from here when we're going to build her stats. Okay, so the kin has been we built one and we deployed it. We're going to do the vocation in the next video. Okay? Thanks very much for watching.